Very impressive what you're doing up there, Brad and Andrew. Very good stuff. Spatial information to assist with layout, VRT, and soil amelioration in high rainfall cropping. Our next speaker comes from Esperance. He's a property manager for Warrakirri Cropping at Lobethal, Contingup. It's 100 k's east of Esperance, where he lives with his wife and 3 kids. Been managing dryland cropping farms throughout Australia for over 12 years. Member of the CTF executive for the last 4 years. Loves AFL and coaching Year 3 Auskickers. And he's a Freo supporter. Please welcome Con Murphy.
Hey, thank you guys. Freo, that's a bit of a disaster at the moment. And thanks Bendy for putting me up to do this today. Sorry. So I've got quite a bit to talk about. She's given me lots of room to blabber on for a bit. So we'll see what I can do. We've our control trafficking is a work in progress. This year looks pretty good. 36 metre spreader tracks. This paddock was actually sown with a 4.5 metre seeder. So I'll probably give you a bit of a rundown on what we try and do and mainly our story, I guess. I'll start off with myself. The right way. Originally from Ireland, been in Australia for 19 seasons. My dad's a mountain sheep farmer. Still does that. I've got a couple of brothers involved in that farm at home. Did an apprenticeship in farming in Ireland. Spent my time milking cows. Worked on intensive dairy farms. Before I decided to start travelling, came to West Australia 19 years ago. Had my first pint of Guinness downstairs. And worked on a cropping property east of Balladoo. Really liked what I did, wide open spaces, land of opportunity. I came here before the GFC hit the world. I actually came here before Ireland was booming. So, loved what I did. Spent 9 years, I spent 2 years in Balladoo. Spent 9 years travelling the East Coast, working on different farms. And 10 years ago, came back to manage a farm at Mount Madden. And my neighbour there, my mentor, who got me into the CTF side of things, Owen Brownlee. Probably owe a lot to him as to where I've got to today with doing some of this. Get this right in a minute. So over time, I've swapped a backpack for this bunch of larrikins. And we now call Contingup home. So I'm into my 3rd season working for Warrakirri Cropping. We've got we're down the very bottom here, this little green area, right out near Islite Bay. We run a 13,000 hectare dryland cropping property. High rainfall zone, we're 8 kilometres from the ocean. Pretty smick beaches down here. Lots of sharks too, but let me see. We'll keep going up. Lobethal was originally a sheep station, cleared in the 1960s. For 50 years ran sheep. 8 years ago it was sold, and I guess began a change. So it's moved to cropping. So we've changed from that amount of paddocks to this amount of paddocks. Not a fence inside, just opened it right up to get the most efficiencies out of gear. It's the main part of the farm in here has had, this is its 8th crop ever grown. So it's pretty new country. When I came on board 3 years ago, one of the pushes was CTF, variable rate, try and make as much use out of technology as I can. So being a pretty blank canvas, we didn't have any historical records. In 2015 we started EM, radiometric mapping. 2016 we completed the whole farm, did 360 soil samples through the farm to ground truth what we had achieved. And that gave us some solid information to start variable rating. We do the whole farm on We do the whole farm with MOP variable rate at the moment. This one in here would be nitrogen. This one over here is lime. So MOP is variable rated, lime is variable rated. Nitrogen, we've started working on that. It's a bit harder to get done. Once we get some more yield data, we'll be able to get a bit more happening with that. We've got some really good soil. Quentin showed me this one before, but we've got a large liming program, we've got a large gypsum program as well, so we're using gypsum on our heavier soils. And everything we've done has been aimed to be at 12 metre controlled trafficking. Our contract spreader has been spreading at 12 metres for a number of years now, which helps everything as we go along, I guess. Water is a big problem for us. We've got lots of it, way too much of it. In 2013, when Warrakirri bought the farm, massive areas had to be sprayed out. Just didn't make it, got waterlogged and drowned. So we'll probably touch on some of the things Bindy's already spoken about, doing mapping to control our water. We've used Quentin and drainage program and designed a drainage program. So firstly we had to get some data. We used the seeding contractor to collect elevation data at seeding time, put that together to come up with some maps. So we started drawing in major drains, and this is a lowest lying part of the farm where we've got an exit for water, got another exit for water through here. So we've tried to get as much water to these areas as we possibly can, and over the years we've added in more drains. We're using scrapers to dig the drains, and we get lots of water to flow. When it rains really heavy. We've had last year in August to October we had 250 mils in a 6-week period, so moving water is a big thing for us. Have looked at controlled trafficking as a way to move water as well. We've started putting run lines, aiming them towards the drains, just to try and get a bit more water moving. We currently have about 56 kilometres of drains through the farm, and we've still got a couple of years left on drainage. This was part of the farm September last year. Massive areas died and didn't come back. Same part of the farm this year with a large drain moving water. We've still got some water sitting from earlier this year, but the majority of our water has been moved on. The predominant soil type is silver loam. Otherwise known as gutless white sand. We've lots of issues with non-wetting. This season had 500 mils of rain on this so far, and large areas of crop haven't come up yet. So we've started claying a lot of our sandier soils. So you can see, hang on, I'll go back. You can see what the soil looks like. It's really white. We're putting 400 tonne of clay on here, and yeah, getting some really good results out of it. Again, finding clay, we have an issue sometimes close to where we need to spread it, but yeah, we're getting there. Very important tool, working out the compaction of our soil. In 2015, when we started clay spreading, we probably inadvertently found some other issues with a lot of compaction. We used the deep ripper to rip up paddocks that had been clay spread, and found that we were getting really good results from ripping country just that hadn't been clay spread. So we ripped an area here, had a spader in to try and incorporate some clay, ran it down the paddock, seeded it conventionally, and found massive yield difference between, this was our control as such, and this was where we had ripped and spaded. And that's led us to purchasing our own deep ripper, starting a pretty large ripping program, and we follow that up with a spader. We built our own seed cart in front. We're seeding in front of the press wheels. We had one unit in 2016. We've had 2 units this year. Had some really good success yield-wise, and yeah, we've doubled out our size of our program this year. And last year in 16 we planted barley, just all barley. This year we've changed it up. We've planted canola, wheat, and a little bit of barley. Let's go back a little bit. The ripper was custom built by Newfab in Geraldton. It's got a single leading tine. A lot of that information that Paul Blackwell did with Charles and Munglen up led us to go down the track of building that. We're ripping most of the time 600 plus. When it does hit harder soils, we've got to come up a little bit, but we try and keep it in as deep as we possibly can. We were finding a return on investment in 1 year last year, even with really bad barley prices. That's why we've doubled the size of our program this year, and we've taken country that yielded very, very poorly last year in the wet to having phenomenal potential this year. That runs for, I've got 2 of them. They run for probably 8 or 9 weeks round the clock. I burn out a couple of backpackers every year on there. But the results we're getting out of it is phenomenal. You can see through here that the press wheels leave a defined pattern after the spader. Barley seed after a couple of days. Long root systems. We're finding, I think 4 weeks after we planted barley last year, we had roots down to 600 mils at the bottom of the ripping. This is the crop 6 or 8 weeks later, and it just powers on. Everything seems to be really healthy. Everything seems to just gives it a really good start, and it just powers on from there. Canola this year. This one over here was planted on the 13th of April, 4 kilos per hectare. This was on the 23rd with a spader. This country's been deep ripped. Root systems, deep ripped and spaded, and normal. Yeah, I'd be thinking there's 500 kilos difference there, at least. And this is what we're trying to achieve. With nice straight run lines, hopefully get less of the water ponds. As we rip more country, we're finding that the water's infiltrating into the soil, not ponding in the low areas. Drainage is helping with some places we can't get to. There's a lake in here, we can't get to that. If we have to get to that, we have to dig a drain a couple of metres deep for 4 or 5 kilometres, and it's just not economical. So there will be sacrifice areas, but that won't always be wet. It'll dry up one time and we'll get a crop in there. Maybe 1 year and 4 or 5, but hopefully as we rip, we'll have less of these lakes on the farm. Yeah, that's my pot of gold underneath the rainbow at the moment.
Big difference between County Kerry and Ireland.
There is a massive difference. Yeah.
I've been there, I know it's not. Any questions to go?
It's variable rate K, potash. Yeah. No. We use the EM mapping, and then we ground through to the soil types on with the EM. We soil typed extensively through the farm. We did 360 plus actual cores to see what was in there. So we're using those as a reference and using soil types as a base to do a map and work from there.
Oh, yeah, just that compaction, did you find being such a new farm, is that relatively, is that natural compaction?
I think it is, yeah. I think it is. The biggest question is, when are we going to have to rip again? How long is it going to stay in that state? Because wet sand compacts naturally. So it's a unknown at the moment.
Con, we've probably done something pretty similar just with the ripping and spading, but aren't seeing the root penetration as you describe it. What's your subsoil pH like?
Pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty good. Our surface was more acidic than our subsoil, and we found that spading has actually brought our surface up as well quite substantially. We've limed extensively to get our surface up, but once we start mixing it up a little bit, it brings everything more uniform.
And are you hitting a clay or gravel base there at all, or is it just mainly a deep sand?
Some places we do. Some places we go through a couple of feet of gravel and we'll hit some clay, but yeah, lots of places we've got sand that goes down for metres.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, guys.